our guest is Kate Breslin.
I think anyone who's familiar with the Holocaust, we all ask ourselves that question, why did it happen? Why did God let that happen?
And pass it on, share the gospel clear and strong, stand for, claim your heritage of truth.
Welcome to Heritage of Truth. Today our guest is Kate Breslin. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you so much, Jeannie. It's wonderful being here.
And you're a novelist.
I am.
And her novel is For Such a Time. And this actually won an award.
It did. It won Christian Retailing's Best First Book Award for 2015, and I'm very delighted.
Congratulations. And Debbie Maycomer also gave this a stunning endorsement.
Yes, she did. I'm very grateful, and I was thrilled when I found out how much she enjoyed it. It was just, that was another little dream come true.
Yeah.
I admire her very much.
Well, this book is a book that takes place in 1944.
Correct.
During the Second World War.
Yes.
But it also parallels the story of Esther from the Bible. How did you decide to pair those two?
Well, it was kind of it was a seed of an idea, really. I was reading from the book of Esther, and it struck me that, the Jewish people had suffered throughout history at the hands of one society or another.
Mm-hmm.
You had the Babylonians, the Romans, the Crusades, the Middle Ages, and the next thought was, what was the most modern time I could think of? And, I had seen some documentaries, the Holocaust of World War II,
Mm-hmm.
Hitler, and I started to kind of bridge that connection, and I wondered, well, could I take the story of Esther and set it in this more modern venue of World War II? And I started to do a little bit of research, and I chose my story setting, which was terrorism in Czechoslovakia, and For Such a Time was born. And I continued to do research on it for several years. Basically, each chapter is a verse from Esther, and it flows into the following scene.
So how long did it take you to write this book?
Oh, cumulatively, about 5 years worth of research, a lot of research, but honestly, going back, revising, deepening my characters, closer to 10 years. It's not the first book I wrote, but it is the first book that's, I've gotten published and very close to my heart. I felt very impassioned by this book.
No wonder it won an award with all that work that went into
Thank
it.
you.
Well, there's a character in here, Colonel Erich von Schmidt, and you chose to make him a sympathetic character without excusing his actions as commander of the prison camp. So what was difficult about portraying him?
Essentially, it was, how do you make a hardened Nazi soldier someone that a persecuted Jewess could fall in love with? And that was very tough, especially after the research. I had to, Esther is basically a love story, and Eric had to play the part of King Xerxes in the story, who does fall in love with Esther and saves her people. So I really had to do a lot of research. I read memoirs of German soldiers. I read Edith Hahn Beer's A Nazi Officer's Wife, which was a true story about a Jewess married to a Nazi officer, and several other books in order to peel back the layers of Eric's character and try to determine, his wounded, conflicted, sympathetic traits to be something that Hadassah would fall in love with. It wasn't easy.
I'll bet.
But it was very
I'll
gratifying.
bet. So throughout the book, Stella wrestles with the question of how God could allow the sort of suffering that she sees in the concentration camps. What led you to include such a difficult question, and how does your story address it?
I think anyone who's familiar with the Holocaust, we all ask ourselves that question, why did it happen? Why did God let that happen? This Father in heaven who's so merciful. And yet, God loved us enough to give us all free will. He wanted us to love us of our own accord, not force that on us. And so consequently, having free will, some men are influenced by evil. But I believe that God is the rainbow at the end of the storm, that no matter what man does to man, God always supplies love, or he gives us that hope when all seems lost. He's there for us, so we can get back on our feet and move forward. It's that hope. So I basically, as I wrote the story, and I was kind of growing in my faith at the same time, answering my own question, and I think that what I want readers to come away with is to remember what is of God, which is love, compassion, sacrifice, and what is not of God, which is hatred and brutality and anger.
Yeah. Have you heard from readers that they've been struck by a particular part of the book?
There are a couple of minds to that. I've had a lot of readers that are really inspired by Hadassah's courage in the face of death, because this is a very dark story, but it's also a story of hope. You know, that love does conquer evil, and that God does have the last word. The other opinion I get is it's basically a cautionary tale, because this time in history, we can never forget it. And, especially with the world events today going on, a lot of people can relate to that, that it's something we can't forget.
Well, in the research that you did of the Holocaust, as you said, one of the darkest times in history, were you able to stay focused with hope, despite all the tragedy and the pain and suffering that you saw in your research?
I admit, I had to take breaks.
I bet you did.
The research at times was so emotionally draining. To read firsthand accounts from camp survivors, prisoners. It just almost seemed unbelievable that, man could treat man that way. And it was very tempting sometimes to despair. But, Esther's story is a story of hope in the Bible. And we talked about love conquering evil. And then I recalled, Romans 5, verses 3 through 5, about, suffering creates perseverance, creates hope. And so, you come away in the end that, we come through it, I guess, refined, and that, again, God is that rainbow after the storm.
Well, I have to tell you, that necklace is beautiful, and it reminds me of something Queen Esther might wear.
Oh, thank you.
So I just was looking at that and thinking of Queen Esther, thinking that looks appropriate.
Oh,
so
well, thank
did you choose that on purpose?
No, I did not.
Yeah.
But the Book of Esther is one of my favorite Bible stories.
Yeah.
It really is.
What would you like readers to take away from this book when they read it?
I think, for the most part, I want people, as I said, to remember what happened in the Holocaust, and with the things that are going on today. We can't let history repeat itself. And those were some pretty horrific times. We need to stand up, just as Hadassah did in the story. Sometimes it's just the courage of one to stand up for what we believe in, believe in our faith, and do the right thing, even though it might be a little scary. And those are things I'd like to inspire readers with.
Right. Well, also, she called her people to fasting and prayer before she went in there. And the Bible calls us, his people, to humble ourselves and pray and seek his face.
Absolutely.
And that's when we're going to see the healing happen
absolutely.
to our land. I think this is a very timely story.
Thank you.
I thank you for writing it, especially right now. I think it's important, and I hope people will pick it up and read it. Again, it's for such a time. Where can people find you online?
They can find me at katebreslin.com. I'm also on, if you go to the website, you can find Twitter, Facebook sites, all my social media.
Great.
And or Baker Publishing. You can find me there as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Kate, for being our guest.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed this.
Share the